Hello, buenas tardes, buenas noches. Hello, everybody. We're back on our regular Wednesday night live. As some of you know, I have kind of been in these international streets and or on planes or supposed to be on planes. And so we haven't been able to go live on a Wednesday evening, or at least it's Wednesday evening where I am. So glad to be back. If you're here joining us live, say hello in the chat. If you know, YouTube has served, the algorithm has served this video to you, and you're like, who is this woman? What is she here to talk to me about? My name is Adelia Borshade, although most people on the internet know me as Picky Girl Travels the World. I am a financial educator and relocation specialist who has been living outside the US for almost 7 years. I have made it my life's work to help Black women live life on their terms. And a big component of that is mastering their financial situation. And so on this channel, we talk about money, we talk about living abroad, we talk about traveling. If any of those topics are of interest to you, you totally should be subscribed to the channel, and you should also turn on notifications. That way you know the next time we go live or the next time I upload a video. Hey, Valerina. Hey, Greta. Glad y'all could join us tonight. Tonight, I have a very, very special guest joining me. And we're going to be talking about what you need to know about taxes, US taxes specifically, if you are going to be living outside the United States. I know that a lot of y'all are at different points in the journey. Some of you are still kind of toying with the idea, trying to figure out, is it going to be something that can work for you? Some of y'all have your plan. You've got your accountability partner. You're counting down the days. You're getting rid of your stuff. And then some of you are like me. You have already made the jump. You're either out there bopping around like a digital nomad, or you have completed your country shopping and you found a new place to call home. I think our conversation tonight is going to have a little bit of something for everybody. So, without further ado, I want y'all to meet MaCara, who is, I'm gonna let you tell the people who you are.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I am MaCara. I am the CEO of Legacy Accounting Partners and Around the World Ledger. And really, I help U.S. expats, entrepreneurs, or those who inspire to be entrepreneurs, navigate this complex tax system we have out here because, you know, they be on our butt. Them people be on our butt.
If there's one thing, I say this, I every few months I offer an investing challenge for newbie investors, and the conversation always ends up we end up talking about taxes. And I'm sure people can quote me as saying, Uncle Sam always is looking for his money. He is always gonna have his hand in your pocket. So having this conversation about taxes is, I think, very, very important.
It is very
Excuse
much so.
me. Okay, so I am curious. How did you end up? Because your website says, what does it say? Something about the intersection of travel
Between
and
travel
taxes,
travel
travel
and
and finance.
finance. Yes.
Okay. So I'm curious, how did you end up here at this intersection doing this work?
Oh, well, Adelia, let me tell you. Let's say I tripped into it actually. My background is in nonprofit management. I spent, many, many, many years working for a large international nonprofit agency. And so I end up getting laid off. from that organization. And I really had to like figure stuff out because, finances is not something that in a lot of communities of color is really, talked about. And so, I just had to figure it out. So it really started out as a program that I went to with the YWCA, and it was a financial literacy program, and that was my introduction really into finances, the beginning of finances, and how these mindsets that we have against with money, and just thinking about how to navigate adulthood really when it comes to money. And so with that, it was so interesting to me, and from there I end up taking more educational courses around finances, and then I start volunteering for some other nonprofit agencies regarding finances. And I also taught financial literacy to children at our public library in my city that I'm currently residing in. So from there, I went back to school and I ended up getting my accounting degree. And my accounting degree, I end up emphasizing in international taxation. And so there came the more logical and logistical part of finances and taxation and everything like that. So yeah, that's how I really kind of became into it. And for a while I've been doing taxes for other businesses, and contracting my work out. And then in the pandemic, which is such a weird time to start a business, but during the pandemic, I ended up starting my own firm, boutique accounting firm. So, yeah, that's how I came into the whole financial game.
Now, I'm curious, um, were you much of a traveler? I'm curious about the choice of international
So
taxation.
yes, so I've always been like I would say nomadic at heart. My I end up living in the foster care system at a really young age. So going place to place was like very regular for me. And so when my grandmother finally was able to get custody of me, which was like a little later on in life, she's one of those, real grandmothers, like, had was the mother of the church, and they'll travel Baptists, travel to different churches all over the United States. She'll pack us up and we'll just go everywhere. They travel everywhere. And so that really kind of like that trajectory of like, traveling and being nomad. And then I started solo traveling around 17 years old. And that's how like it was more United States. And I took my first solo international travel to Cuba when Obama opened up them doors for Americans to be able to travel to Cuba. And so from there, it's kind of like most everybody, you get bit by the travel bug pretty much. And really that was my main like self discovery of who I am as a woman, and recognizing my privilege going there. And so it was really self discovery for me. And from there, it was just like I go everywhere, going to Asia, going to Europe, just traveling. And also, I tried my where the finances part come in. Why I'm such a big advocate of organization and planning when it comes to finances is twice I attempted to live abroad. The first attempt was back in 2015. I moved to the Dominican Republic, and I thought, well, my familiar background. My dad is Dominican and Jamaican, and so I thought, okay, I can navigate. I can be okay, and that was not the case. Adelia, I went over there. I ain't say nobody money. And really, I was like, oh, I gotta go back home. So had to pack it up because I didn't, proper plan and just, was able to sustain myself. And then I end up leaving again for about 6 months. So I wouldn't really say like, I wasn't an immigrant or whatever to Mexico and Playa del Carmen in 2020 after my mom passed away. So it was really one of those, I got to get away. I'm trying to navigate and everything. And of course, that was another round of self discovery. And so there, I made the conscious decision to just like plan my finances, plan, making sure that I'm organized as an individual, but also as an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurship, if you haven't been, actively engaging and making sure you're, proper planning in your personal life, entrepreneurship is just going to be an added, whoo, Lord Jesus, a whole added like fire almost. So,
Yeah.
and from there, that really, I even was saying my clients, like most of my clients, about 90% of my clients, they're also entrepreneurs. And so even when I began my business, seeing, the hurdles that they have to go through, and some of the things just navigating as, a solopreneur or entrepreneur, you wear a lot of hats, and honestly, you just need to kind of have your board of directors, like a personal person that who's able to help you navigate through those things.
Okay. All right. Well, you will definitely fit in well around here. Solo traveling at age 17, your first international solo trip to Cuba. That is not the easiest place to solo travel. If you can do that, you can do anything.
Yeah,
So
it was great. But honestly, once it's almost, I'm very like holistic now when it comes to everything that, I am putting into place. And so like being able to follow some of those things that God calls you to follow, or, those inclinations, like you have to be able to, accept that and, go off and not, of course, again, with the proper planning, and to do those things and everything. And plus, honestly, Adelia, I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, from the South Side, right? So I really felt like if I could navigate the south
for
side of
real,
Chicago streets,
for
I could
real.
navigate Cuba or anybody else streets that they put me
You're right. That's
in.
100% true. You're exactly right. Okay. So, one of the reasons I wanted Makara to come on and chat with us is, like, oh gosh, it was probably 2 years ago. I did a video called 10 Money Moves to Make Before You Move Abroad. And some of them were just kind of basic financial literacy sorts of things, and some of them were more tax focused. And I feel like the tax piece is one that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. So tonight we're going to kind of look at, different tax questions, issues for everybody, whether you're just starting to plan your move abroad or versus you're already abroad, you've been out here living this life, you're a digital nomad, that sort of thing. Um, and something that comes up often, and one of the things I mentioned in this video was about, before leaving the US, it might be a good idea to relocate, redomicile to one of the 11, well, I think it's 11 states that don't have a state income tax.
Hmm.
Um, so that as you are outside of the US, and because we're going to get into, what you got to do for federal taxes, so that you wouldn't then be hit with state income taxes. Uh, I was going to say I'm fortunate. I don't know if I'm fortunate that I'm from Texas, but that was something like I didn't even have to think about because Texas is one of those states that does not have a state income tax. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so can you talk about that a little bit, like being domiciled to a state, like what that means, how that works, you
Absolutely.
know?
Yeah, so yes, so when it comes to being domiciled to certain states, especially with states that have state income tax that require you to pay, that's part of the planning, pre-planning that you do when you decide to move abroad. So some states, they require you to. It don't matter where you're located. If you decide to, let's say, New York, for instance, because there are certain states are harder to transfer, domicile, but say for instance for New York, if you decide to move abroad, you're still required to pay those state income taxes, and locality taxes too, because New York is one of those locations that you have local taxes and you have state taxes. So when you do decide to make the move, it's important to find a state that don't require you to pay state income taxes. And the things with domicile is you're literally, if you have a home in that state, if let's say for those who work in a W-2 job and is living abroad, if make it any type of money, anything that really hold you, you know, uh, you're doing voting in that state, that you are still considered part of that state. I mean, they still own you and they want their money and they will be expecting for you to file those taxes. Part of like leaving and what we call like resident tax, like states or whatnot. Resident states a lot of times just you're easily able to pick up and not pay. Normally there is sometimes a form that you will have to fill out with the Department of Revenue, depending on where that state is located. Or basically, you're just not a resident, you're not living there anymore. So I always tell my clients, for those who are, interested to moving abroad, let's look at other states to, live in or do, say you're a resident of, if you still want to have that accessibility to the United States. And if you decide to want to like not be a domicile of a state, depending on some of those states, it can be really hard. California, New York, some of them are really
I was going
hard
to say
to.
California. I know both California and New York do not let
it,
go. Simply
they
moving out of the
not.
state is not
It
enough.
does not. It's not. So therefore, a lot of times you have to sell any property that you have. You have to whatever state that do not require you to pay income tax. And like right now, I'm in Texas too. So like Texas being one, you have to like in your voter information, you have to make sure your identification is in another state. It just takes a lot of work to just like completely strip away. And sometimes, honestly, that isn't, an option for some people, especially if you're living, you have family and stuff that's still connected to that state. And a lot of times too, depending on if you have children that is going to college in that state, and you're using financial assistance and everything like that, they will even try to tie you in and won't let you go away or let you say I don't want to be taxed in the state no more. Depending on certain institutions, they require you to still be a part of that state. So those are some of the things that we look at when we're doing like the whole planning phase of your whether you need to be taxed or not. So yeah, it can be really complicated, and this is something that you should plan and just start planning now. Like if it's not a overnight situation,
No.
right? So it's something that takes time for you to do that. Now, certain states, income tax states, they may allow, they do have where you can omit certain income because you're living abroad. And really, you have to check in with that state if they offer that, So each state, it just really depends. Some locations, like, you won't require to, your foreign income will be excluded from that state, but you may have to pay dividends and interest and stuff like that. So it really just depends, pretty much on that state, and really trying to check with that state department if that is something that they offer.
Okay. Okay. And you mentioned foreign income. So
Hmm.
let's talk about that a little bit,
Hmm.
because part of the reason that somebody would want to like not be domiciled in a state like, let's say, California or New York, where they have state income tax. You mentioned like a local municipal level income taxes and that sort of thing, is because when you are not in the US, um, it is possible for you to exempt your foreign earned income. Y'all have heard me talk about the FEIE before. So FEIE, foreign earned income exemption. What constitutes that income? What counts as foreign income? Because there seems to be a little confusion about that.
Yeah, so really, okay, I think of there's two types of foreign income. There is like foreign income. Let's think of your income, and let's say you attach your income to yourself, right? Let's say you are the income. There is like some people get that confused. Like if I move abroad, a lot of times that is creating foreign earned income because it's attached to you. If you're in a foreign country, that income is considered foreign earned income. So that's that route. And then you have those are foreign earned income that have businesses that is, foreign based businesses. US citizens that do have businesses abroad, that is foreign earned income also. So that's pretty much, the gist of what foreign income is. Now,
Okay.
earned income, there's certain things like your dividends, your interest, there's rental income, there's income can be so wide, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's one of the things too, Adelia, that I tell people is one, where's the source of your income is like coming from. Depending on, there is also those who anytime you like if you're living abroad and you say, okay, I have most people I know that live abroad have their own businesses, right? They have either a side hustle or something like that. And uh, they move there and then they think that, okay, I have this foreign earned income now, but I go decide to, go back home for a little bit, to go visit the grandkids or your children or your family. That's no longer foreign earned income anymore. Even though that you might be living in another country, once you decide to take yourself, and if doing business on a computer or whatnot, then you have to like exclude that from the foreign earned income exclusion amount. So that gets tricky. That's what a lot of people like end up.
I'm gonna interrupt you here because
Yes.
you just okay. So the general idea behind the FEIE, the foreign earned income exemption, is that if you have foreign earned income, not like passive income, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you are either outside the US for 330 days, or you are a bona fide resident of another country,
Yes.
up to $120,000 of that income is exempt from federal income taxes, right? That's the general idea.
That's the general
This
idea.
general idea. And so we were talking about, you know, being a resident or domiciled in a state that doesn't have state income taxes, because the FEIE is specifically for federal
Federal.
taxes.
That's
So
correct.
if you live, I'm just going to say Louisiana. I don't know this to be true, but let's say you got a Louisiana license. That's where you live before you move to Mexico. Yes, you can use the FEIE to exempt your money from federal income taxes, but the Louisiana tax man may still show up and be like, but hey, we want our share of that.
We want our money. Yeah. We want our
Okay.
money. Absolutely. Yes. That is correct.
Okay. But when you are an entrepreneur or a business owner,
Okay.
yes, you're earning that money, but that money doesn't necessarily fall under FEIE
It
because
doesn't. It doesn't
okay,
because one, the FEIE is for income tax only, right? So it excludes income tax. It doesn't exclude like self-employment tax. So therefore, if you do move abroad, right, and you have your business, you're still required to pay your self-employment tax, and that's 15.3% here. And so, no matter where you decide to go, that is something that people think that when they move abroad that they just I don't have to pay taxes anymore. That is not the case whatsoever. Of course, there's ways sometimes you can like reduce um, that self-employment taxes, and there's different ways for you to reduce the self-employment tax.
okay,
But one of the things is even with proper planning is yes, you focus on your main focus, of course, is your US side of things, but you really have to understand where you're going to because depending on where you're going to, the taxation system might be a little different. They might not have a tax treaty, or they might not, they may decide to, depending on how you set up your business structure, they may say that that's a corporate, a corporation, and like let's say for a LLC or something like that, they may look at it as this is a corporation, so they might end up, charging you corporate taxes. And if you have like, an S corp or something like that, so it's very important to kind of understand both sides of the trajectory when it comes to doing taxes. And then with that being said, yes, with the, let's say, unemployment, you're still taxed. Your, dividends is still taxed. Like I said, it's really,
income tax.
income tax only. And so can you decide to, it is a way for a lot of people too to use it as a method of, making money, getting more income in. But that just depends on how you're being taxed in the US too. Because let's say for instance, and I have this is something that really gets a lot of entrepreneurs is they don't think about the self-employment tax. They don't think about paying taxes. It always hit them at the end of the year because our mindset is like we're so used to the whoever we work for to take out their portion of taxes, and then while we're working, both sides of the self-employment taxes, Social Security and Medicare is being taken out and everything. And then we get into the businesses and we don't even do our quarterly tax filings, or it's not proper. We're not properly accounting for everything. We don't have, a system set up. We're not organizing everything. So what happens is, even if you decide to move into another country, that's those habits still follow with you. But if you like, you paid into the tax system, right? And you decide to move abroad, you can definitely, reduce that as your taxable income on an income tax portion. And potentially that's more money into your pocket, right? So
Yeah.
it just depends.
Okay. All right. So, I think the next kind of topic that goes with that, like, because one of the things that I've always said to people is you've got to file taxes, whether or not you're going to have to pay them. That's going to depend on how you're making your money and an assortment of things.
Right.
But there are some things beyond just your tax return that folks probably should be aware of. And I wanted to have you speak to this as you are a professional and I am not. Okay. So, FATCA, the Foreign Account Tax Compliance.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell the people what this is?
Okay. I call it you're like the stalker.
Good analogy.
Okay, so a some years ago, this was like introduced. We always had like the FACA, but this is part of like them this reporting, like where your money, where are you putting your money at? And so what happened is that there were corporations that will what they call offshore accounts and like hide money, and foreign bank accounts. And so when they did that, it wasn't properly reporting, right? So now the IRS and the IRS got hip to it, and they end up having an agreement now of where the reporting aspect come in when it comes to foreign money. So there is a few things. There is falls up under that is like your F bar, and then there's
Okay,
the
hold on. I got one of
893.
those for FBAR.
Okay.
FBAR
Okay.
is the Foreign Bank Account Report. All
Yes.
right.
So what falls up into that trajectory is basically now you have to report a certain amount of money that you have in your foreign banks that you have. So specifically for FBAR, right? They you have to report whatever income if you have met the aggregate threshold of $10,000. So let's say I have like a few people that clients of mine that live in Portugal, right? And part of their getting certain visas, they have to show a certain amount of money into the account, right? And so if you end up putting money into a foreign account, and let's say at the end of the day, if you put $10,000 anytime, you have to report that,
And
and that
it's
is the
not
F
a
part.
single account
It
either.
isn't. It's all over aggregate. So anytime that you make 10,000 or more, you have to report that with the FinCEN. So it's just a reporting. It's not a tax form. It's like an informational form, right?
So that's
And
what FBAR is.
it is FBAR. That's what it
Okay.
is. Correct. And so pretty much this is the thing. Actually, it is an easy form. The thing is, a lot of people don't fill it out. That's the problem. And so I cannot stress enough for people to make sure that you fill out this form. Either your tax professional, accountant, or yourself, you can do it. Um, you go online, you fill this form out, but if you don't, you could possibly be hit for tens of thousands of dollars for not reporting this form. Now, the form, normally for those who live abroad or have foreign money, it is due normally with the regular tax year. So April 15th is typically the due date. However, if you don't get a chance to fill that out, right? So if you don't get a chance to fill it out, that's okay. You have up to October. And it's just an automatic process. But you
Okay.
want to do that because if you don't, right, part of like even paying taxes. If you don't do these things, you can potentially lose visas processes, in the country that you're either trying to get a resident, be a resident of. You can get a hold of your passport, and they can block you from even going abroad. So it's just very important that that is filled out. But another thing is for other thresholds, right? Part of that FACA is the reporting is like for those who have thresholds, then it's another form that you will fill out with your taxes. And depending on if you're a U.S. resident and you have foreign income, like foreign money, it's $50,000 that you will need
That's the
to.
threshold. It's
That's the threshold.
$50,000.
Mm-hmm. $50,000, and then also depending on if you're that's a single person, the threshold does go up for married folks or whatnot, and so then they have like 200,000, 400,000. So when it gets to that, it's just you fill out the tax form, the form with that information.
Okay. But let's say I don't have money at all. I don't have any foreign bank accounts. I don't need to do FBAR, right?
No, you don't have to do F bar if you don't have no foreign accounts or whatever. Even you don't have to do F bar if your threshold wasn't over $10,000.
Okay.
So
Okay.
some people do retire abroad that just get like Social Security or disability or whatnot, and so their income really doesn't justify them for filling it out or anything like that. But anytime anytime that you see that you're going to have like you're moving money, and it doesn't matter, you can move it in and move it out, like
You still
it
have
don't
to report
matter.
that.
That's still, once you put it in that foreign bank, and it has that threshold, that aggregate threshold, you need to report that.
So I would imagine that's more of an issue if, because I know some people, like you said, because of their visa and they have to have so much money in an account in that
Mm-hmm.
country, that might be an issue for them if you're buying property, because you
Mm-hmm.
you can't buy property in a foreign country and like write them a US check. Like the money needs to be
No, you
in the
can't.
foreign account. So that might trigger it as well. There was something
Absolutely.
you said, what was it? There was something you said that I wanted to circle back to. Oh, it is not coming back to me. Oh, I know what it was. We were talking about FATCA, and it's the reporting because they want to make sure that you're not hiding money offshore. And if somebody's watching this and they're thinking like, "Oh, I don't have to report like what I've got in my American bank accounts," that's because they already know. The
They
bank
already
is,
know.
yeah,
So
the bank is
if y'all
already giving them that information.
actually, if you ever paid attention to the forms you fill out, your bank forms, right? And you probably never really noticed it or paid attention to them. But when you fill out bank forms, there's like a little blurb about FATCA or whatever. So the thing is, I mean, the US already know. They're already tracking it. And so the thing is, we have, agreements, and the US makes agreements with countries and stuff for them to, they're required to
Yes.
report your income, right? Or whatever financial assets that you have there. So it's 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 not, honestly, it's not a big deal, you guys. It really
No,
isn't.
no.
Because they know
Uh,
anyway,
yeah,
especially if you're making income here. Like, the
they
thing
know.
is, they know. Absolutely.
When I had to open a bank account in Honduras when I was working there in order to be paid. And they asked me for my social security number, which I did not expect, but that's what it was. It was because they had to report back to the US government. These are the US citizens, these are their accounts, these are their balances. So, um,
Right.
yeah, they're
Absolutely.
going to be in your business.
They're going to be in
Okay.
your business.
All right. Related to that, this is something I hadn't really thought about before, but when it comes to FATCA and FBAR, how do fintech companies and
Fintech.
accounts
Okay.
like Wise? A lot of people, it used to be called TransferWise, I think, and now their name is just
Mm-hmm.
Wise. A lot of people have accounts with them because you can have multiple currency. It makes it easy to, like, there are people here in Mexico who pay their rent electronically who do not have a local bank account, but they pay it from their Wise account. I know that the Wise account is not technically a bank account.
No, it's a financial account. So,
Okay.
so that's the thing that people get a little confused, when you think of fintech companies, right? So, besides my business, I also work for a fintech company, and I do corporate payroll taxes with them. So the thing is that anytime that there's money related to, transferring, they do actually have certain banks that they are connected with, because it's finance, it's money, right?
Okay. Okay.
So the thing is, and that's where people get kind of tricky, because sometimes these companies too, they may be US based companies,
Yeah.
name something else in another country or whatnot. They have some type of connection. So yes, you do need to report those things. And it's not, the thing is, it's your US currency amount. So even if you're transferring money in euros or pesos or whatever the case may be, whatever that amount is, US dollar wise, needs to be reported.
Okay. Okay. I was just curious about that because, a lot of people don't realize that something like Wise is not a bank. Yes, they partner with a bank, but, and so they may not realize that, like, oh, this would, I just wondered how they treated that. So thank you
They
for clearing
treated,
that up.
the thing is with, like, transfer wise or what are those things, the point is your money is going into the system, right? So your money, you have to think of, it's not where you put it at. It doesn't matter. You can put it, spread it all the way. You can do prepay accounts. You can do whatever, any type of apps or whatever. At the end of the day, that money that you took, that
Mhm.
is where the focus is, right? So not really try to get into the weeds of like how, like
Okay.
where it's stemming
Okay.
from.
Um, Something else that comes up a lot, and you even mentioned it when we were talking earlier about, like, tax treaties. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we often hear them say, like, well, because you said you need to know, like, what is the tax situation in the country you're going to? Because, yeah, as long as you have a US passport, you are obligated to file your US federal taxes, but you may have obligations for this new country. And
Mm-hmm.
so can you talk a little bit of like what is a tax treaty? Or what are some of the things that might be covered in that?
Yes. So, really, basically, a tax treaty is an agreement between the US and another country where basically you won't be quote unquote double taxed, right? And so that means, depending on the country that you're going to, it's saying that, okay, if you're required to pay taxes, then the US will, omit those taxation, or depending on which country, because some countries, they're the, like, we are the one that you need to be worried about. And then
Okay.
some things with the US, most of the times they be like, we need to know, we are your main tax people or whatever. So that's really pretty much the gist of the agreement. Not all countries have this agreement. It's Many don't. I can't tell
I
you
was
off
gonna
the top of
say,
the
I think
head.
I looked, and it's like 69, and there are like
Yes,
roughly 195 countries. So no, the majority of
absolutely.
them don't.
So you can go on to like the state, you could go through the IRS too, but you could go also through the state, like the US state advisory thing, and you can go on a website to see those countries. I always kind of think of, depending on sometimes political things, a lot of way. Like if you look at like the US, there is certain restrictions on certain countries. 9 times out of 10, there isn't a treaty in place, right? So you just have to kind of, look at that way. But other than that, that means you won't be double taxed. So um, you can move it to the country, and if you're required to pay taxes, you won't have to worry about, they
Okay.
taxing you twice.
All right. Now, I meant to talk about this when we were talking about the FEIE, the foreign earned income exemption,
Mm-hmm.
because as we mentioned, that's a way, depending on how you earn in your income, if you're outside the US, that you can exempt up to about $120,000 from federal income taxes. But
Mm-hmm.
there's something else that expats, people living, US taxpayers living outside the US can use, um
Or Social Security.
foreign, what is it? Foreign tax credit? Is that it?
Okay, yes, foreign tax credit, FTC, yes.
FTC.
So,
Okay.
absolutely. So FTC is a foreign tax credit. So basically, it's like almost a dollar for dollar thing. So let's say, for instance, you living in Portugal, right? And you Portugal kind of got a high tax system. I think they go up to like 43, 47%. And so let's say if you're required to pay taxes there, right? And you have to pay taxes in the US. You're able to basically exclude the amount that you paid in that country from your US taxes. And so let me kind of explain that, because it works a little different. So you have your FEIE, right? And that's only up to a threshold. I think it's 119,000 actually. And so let's say you're a high income earner, right? And your threshold is above that, then you're able to, you still be taxed. You still paying your, you're doing your tax reporting with the US. Let's say you still have an XO amount of dollars left that wasn't excluded, that, you have to pay to the US, but Portugal said, hey, you need
You
to
got
pay
to
us.
pay us first.
Yes, because you're a tax resident now. So basically, what you pay in taxes there, you will put that information on your tax return. But You have to make sure though it's not the same. So that you have to make sure you put it into dollars. So
Okay.
you might pay, let's say, $100 in euros, right? It might not be once you, it might not equate to $100 in US dollars. So that's the thing. So pretty much, if you do that, you're able to, write off what you pay in another country. Now, for those who isn't, this is where the planning comes part. So for those who, let's say, they make under the threshold of FEIA, right? You cannot double back. You can't
Okay.
double back. So it's like you either take the FEIE or you take the FTC, right?
Because you can make under the threshold for FEIE, and Portugal could still say, hey, but you got to pay us. You can't
Absolutely.
say, oh, but I paid Portugal, but you can't.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
So once you exclude that income, it's legitimately excluded income. It's like it doesn't exist, right? So that's it. Like that's all you don't you still pay your wherever you at or whatever. But part of the planning is um when we like people decide to say, okay, I want to move abroad, some of the things we talk about is, are you moving to a high tax country, or are you moving to a country that pays little taxes or have no taxes at all? Because that's part of, I say, okay, you have to play this system kind of, you
Yeah.
have to play the system to do whatever you need to do, because I do believe, taxes can be a wealth building strategy. It can be. And so the thing is that, okay, you decide to move to a uh, country that has high taxation, right? Extremely high taxation. Um, and let's say you do fall under the threshold, we're not going to use the FEIE at all. We're going to use the FTC. And the thing with, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think, okay. The thing is, when the issue is, if you're falling under that threshold, if you decide to take the FEIE, you have to take it like for year after year for 5 years, technically. In order for you to no longer take that designation, you have to actually request. And
Oh,
whether or not they give it to you or not, that's dependent on the IRS. And so you can't double back. Like we have a
okay.
lot of people that's like, I'm more of a nomadic person too. So I like to hop around different places. But some of my nomads don't understand that while they're hopping around and country hopping, like you need to be aware of how they're being taxed too, especially depending on most typically most countries tax you, or you become a tax resident after 183 days. Some countries it
It's
don't even
less than
matter
that.
if you exactly. So you have to, excuse me, you have to be aware of where you happen to, because they're like, oh, okay, I want to do the FEIE because I got a nice refund this year. Then I want to do it. Don't work like that. And you're really, if you're not working with a professional and somebody who actually know your situation, you can potentially, be red flag for audit.
Um, so what I'm hearing is, now this was never my problem, because even though I at some of my international teaching jobs, I made more than I did in the US. It still wasn't anywhere near the threshold. But what I'm hearing is, if you are a high earner, or you kind of have the potential to be, you really want to think long and hard about going down the route of FEIE, because it may come back to bite you in the butt later.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm hearing. Okay.
Absolutely. And
Hadn't
also
really
with
considered
people,
that.
people with children. Are you still able to hear me, Adelia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, people with children, this who decide to move abroad, who like really relies on like earned income credit and stuff like that, or not just children, because earned income credit anyone can get it depending on what your income is, right? Um, if you decide to exclude that income, you no longer qualify for earned income credit because you no longer have income anymore.
Income.
You know what I'm saying?
I
So
made that mistake.
that's some things that people, really need to take aware of, and that's why it's important to have like kind of a professional that really guides you through that process, because there's some things that you're not able to take. And part two, I also deal on the flip side of U.S. people that live abroad. I also deal with foreigners who move to the U.S. and I also deal with like even U.S. people who decide to marry a foreigner and they're trying to get them to be a citizen and all that. It can get really in the weeds about a lot of stuff, but part of like for a U.S. citizen who moves abroad, and let's say they find a partner abroad, right? And they say, okay, well, we want to bring back whoever their partner is to the US or whatever. A lot of these, like the immigration process, requires you to have to show that you're able to sufficiently take care of that person, that foreign person. And honestly, even though technically you made the money, it was excluded from your income tax situation. It
Oh,
affects the immigration of the person that you decide to want to marry and get
wow.
citizenship and stuff like that. It does. So that's another thing when we talk about like it can get like visa processes and citizenship and all that
Wow.
other stuff. So your reporting of your income tax depicts whether you a house. You know what I'm saying? Like if you wanted to
Yeah.
purchase a home in the US still,
You
you know, you
you
you're
can't
excluded.
exempt your income and then turn around and say, but
Exactly.
hey, give me a loan. And they're like, but you ain't got no income.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
that is something yeah, that's some information that, people want to be aware of when they're deciding to move
Okay.
abroad.
All right. So here's something that always comes up in the various expat spaces that I am in. Um,
Okay.
renouncing your US citizenship
Okay.
as a way to avoid paying taxes.
Mm. Okay. So I could give you like I'm not gonna give you a high level or whatever because
No.
it's good for you to one talk to your financial advisor. You need to talk to an attorney. But for those, it is people always think that okay, I don't want to pay nothing. I'm done with the U.S. or whatever. One, you want to think about is that a good idea for you to decide to renounce your citizenship? Because let me tell you, once you renounce, that's it. That's
No
it.
do but
No
overs, no
money, no
take backs.
nothing, no not. That's it. So if you haven't like let's say made like if you do decide to make that decision, you really need to plan it. First other thing is you have to properly have filed. So if you have like IRS debt and stuff like out in them streets, or you haven't been properly filing, you owe years of back taxes, or you haven't filed in years, they're not going to approve you for to renounce your
Okay. And notice
citizenship.
she said approve. It's not like, oh, I renounce. Like they have to allow you to leave. You don't
Yes,
just get to say, I'm out.
and they take your like if like they're taking documentation. Like when you say you're no longer a part, you saying I am no longer a U.S. citizen, right? So another thing that people may not be aware of, let's say money that you earned, say like you had like accounts and your you put money into the US system, you potentially is not like you just saying forget them. Don't do it, people. Only people that I recommend that is those who have money. So if
Real
you make
money,
real money, like
serious money.
wealthy, yes, serious money, because one, the U.S. passport is still a strong passport, regardless of the political stuff, regardless of how the economy is going. It's still a really strong passport, right? And a lot of countries recognize that passport, and you're able to get like residencies and be able to be in visas based on that passport. There's ways, it can be easier process for them to do that. But the thing is, when you're renouncing, you're giving up your rights. So it ain't no back and forth. Like, how you think you be back
No,
and forth? It's no back and forth. I'm gonna go visit my. You said bye bye, and I get a lot of people think that that's the best way to go because you think I don't want them in my business. It don't matter, because if you go in somebody
some
else's country, they're gonna be
I was
in
about
your
to say
business.
somebody got to be in your business.
Somebody's gonna be in your business regardless. And honestly, if you learn to like you tax planning is a tool, right? That's not okay. I'm gonna file taxes. If you really plan, you can actually honestly, it might be beneficial for you to still like it's not a bad thing whether you're reporting your taxes to the IRS, right? The only time it's a bad thing is when you're trying to hide money and you don't want to do what you're supposed to do. And I don't
Yeah,
recommend that to nobody or whatnot.
because
So,
they well, especially the majority of my audience is black, and we all know, y'all, as black folks, the rules do not apply to us the same way they apply to everybody else. So, we absolutely shouldn't be the ones trying to hide money somewhere.
absolutely no. You should not hide the money anywhere. Honestly, again, proper planning, having a
Okay.
financial planner, having a tax person planner, they can help you out. You can put money in two places. There's ways you can funnel your money to reduce, if you're thinking about just taxes, if that's
If
your
that's
main focus,
yeah.
right? There's ways for you to reduce your taxable income.
And I will just add to that, in case y'all didn't know this, that if maybe in the back of your mind, one day I might renounce that was playing there. Remember that in order to renounce your US citizenship, you have to be a citizen of another country.
Yep, that's right.
You can't be a stateless person. Because remember, she said they have to approve you. They're not going to approve you if you don't belong to somebody else's country. Uh,
That is
and
absolutely
that
true.
also means that whoever's passport you have, you are subject to their visa rules if and when you need to come back for your great aunt's funeral or you want to see the grandkids at graduation. If you have a passport of a country that, like Mexico, is the US #1 trade partner. However, Mexicans cannot visit the US visa. They do not have visa on arrival. They are not visa
Nope, they
free.
don't.
They got to jump
You're
through
you're
all kind of
you're
hoops.
a foreigner. They gonna
Yep.
treat you just okay. All the news that you hear about immigration and foreigners, and you see how they treat those people. Just know you're gonna be treated the same. Just
And
know that
mind
once.
And mind you, a Mexican passport gets you into something like 150 countries visa free. So the Mexican passport isn't shabby. However, U.S. immigration law and policy is discriminatory against people who hold that particular passport.
They are, and it's so unfortunate. So I won't get into like the politics side of things or
Yes,
whatever and
but
think about
I
that.
just
But
wanted to put
it
that out
is,
there.
it really is. It's yeah, and then there's other countries too. That Europe, okay, right? But even African countries, depending on where you at, I know a lot of people was like, I want to, moving to Africa and stuff like that, moving to certain countries. You have to also think about that process. They think, okay, I'm gonna uproot, I'm going back to the motherland, I'm renouncing my membership, I mean my citizenship, and that's it. But there's no running to, and depending on what country you are in Africa too, a lot of other countries don't recognize, you know, they passport is not as strong, right? And
Yeah.
so if something, God forbid, something happens, political war or anything like that, just know that you're not capable of, just getting up and go like you can now, right? So
Yeah.
again, it's a process. It's an application. They have to approve you, and they run through the application process is definitely pretty lengthy or whatever. And
Yeah.
I just even glanced over the paperwork myself, and so it's just it's not worth it again unless you're wealthy, 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 and you taking all your money and you're going somewhere else or whatever. But a lot of us, unfortunately don't have that option.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. Okay. This is the last, I think, of, well, no, I'm not gonna lie. This is not the last of my questions. Um, okay, so let's say somebody who is abroad,
Hmm.
they are watching this and they're like, oh, okay. I haven't been on my business and I have not filed my taxes since I left.
Okay.
Can they get right with the IRS? How do they do that?
Absolutely. So there is a process they call like a streamline process, depending, basically for each, if you go through the streamline process, right? You say, I need to go handle my business. What the IRS do, you will file, and all most of those penalties and interest that normally is hit for those of, let's say, regular folks that live in the US and who ain't filed, they will definitely a lot of times waive those penalties because you just discovered, hey, I didn't know, right?
Mhm.
They do give you some grace at that part or whatever. So again, that's the streamline filing process. And then let's say if you don't really qualify for the streamline, let's just say a couple of years, you might, you didn't do it or whatever. Just go and file your income tax and be done with it. They do give grace because actually the thing is, this is really kind of new territory with the mass exodus that we're seeing, right? So, really, what we're doing now, like how we act, if we're acting accordingly, kind of really, we have a way to kind of build what basically the system, because the thing is it's new, it's a lot of people doing these. They have seen such um I in my business have seen, I have grown over 50% just over the last, since the pandemic, right? I started my business in the pandemic. I looked up the next year, like I have doubled, my clients and stuff like that. So the thing is, a lot of people are not aware, and especially even those who moved years ago. So this not filing taxes, this is not nothing new for people living
Mhm.
abroad who haven't. This is not new. People been doing it for a long time. You have your retirees that been moving to other countries, decide to not file anymore or whatever. But the thing is, the IRS does give grace in that instance, that you can potentially again get the penalties are waived or reduced depending on the situation. And just, do what you need to do at the end of the day.
Is there a limit to how far back you can file?
So 7 years is basically a limit for you to
Okay.
file. If
Okay.
you receive normally a refund, you have 3 years. They will only go back 3 years for a refund.
Yeah, because
Um,
they're not trying to give you money that
all
they
that
owe
money,
you that
yes,
they didn't spend already.
yes, yes. However, the IRS can audit, your information. They can't even go back 10 years. They can go back whenever they feel like it, honestly,
Of course they can.
So, but normally it's about 10 years or whatever. Like I've
Okay.
seen personally that they, you know, go back to. But honestly, get just fill it out. I know the thing is, it can be taxes, money, all of that can be very stressful, right? And a lot of us, and I've seen it happen. I've seen where people just shut down mentally. They just act like it doesn't exist. They'll get the letters in the mail and everything, and they just act like it doesn't exist. And that's the part that really, affects me is
Mhm.
because as people of color, like I want to see us win. And the thing is, financial literacy is huge. If you're out here, you're earning money, pay your taxes. That's death and taxes, that's for sure.
Yes.
And I see people get themselves in so much. Plan, have an accountant on hand, because then you can also, not only that, do tax reporting, but your financial reporting. And be able to forecast and plan on, okay, some of us, and I'm one of those people that, like, income one year, and it just, it end up changing. You know what I'm saying? It changes. So you have to plan for those things, plan for those changes and stuff. Making sure if you're a US, if you're working in the US, right? And what that looks like. And that's even different, right? So, like, you working for a corporation, and if you're working abroad and you have your regular 9 to 5, like, making sure that, I know a lot of us don't want to tell our employers that
Hmm.
information, but you really should, right? Because there's ways they make it work with you. The only thing they're really be afraid of is their taxation portion of, you
Yeah.
living in another country. But there are ways that you can omit, like social security. Like, there's a form that you can fill out, that your employer can fill out. That way you not paying that or whatever. And if you're required to pay social security in another country, right, that you get that social security is, some people have, like, it's a form that shows that you pay the social security, then you're able to omit, like, certain social security part of your income in the US. So it's just a matter of making sure that, you really, really, be aware and cognizant of the things that you do and act accordingly. I can't stress it enough.
No, I
Adelia,
hear you.
I'm so serious, because I
Yes.
have people to come to me, and it's so sad, and I have to get on that conversation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. I see y'all's questions in there and we are going to get to them. But all right, so let's talk about what it is you do.
Mhm.
Like what kind of services that you offer.
Yeah, so I'm an accountant. So we do, I'm going to say there's two brands. You see Legacy Accounting Partners, And I'm actually kind of moving towards away from that, but I still have someone that be able to assist you guys. But um, we do bookkeeping, financial reporting, business. We'll set up your businesses because that's important. How you set your business up, and we do taxes. And then we have around the world ledger. So that is for those who has already living abroad or really made the conscious decision to move abroad. And there it's mainly the taxation piece. However, we do consulting with regarding visa processes in other countries, also get connected because um, I do uh, work with clients abroad. Is I prefer to work with, well, you need to have someone abroad to handle your taxation and finances over there. So I have my trusty team of people that I work with and I refer clients to, and we work together. So
I just want to make sure y'all heard what she said. She has people she works with in other countries. So you get her on the US end, and then she connects you with somebody in the other country that
absolutely,
she has vetted. Okay. That's
absolutely.
huge. That's huge.
Absolutely. I don't file your taxes in the country that you're residing in. But the good thing about the way how my working method is very holistic. So it's not transactional, right? We're a family over here. Like we're invested. I'm invested with my clients and what they do. So the thing is, even though, I'm working on your US side, I want to make sure that I'm knowledgeable in a sense too in the country that you decide to move in, because that's important, right? Because we might have to change some things over here in the US to make sure that it's more beneficial in the country of residence. So um that's how we act. So it's very much, as you can see, my personality is really laid back. I'm not your average tax account. I came from the mud. You hear me? So I've been through it
No,
all. So if
that's
that
who we
if,
are
if you
around here.
okay, if you okay with that, then great or whatever. If not, I got other people I can recommend you to. Absolutely.
Now, you said you kind of do some consulting because an idea came to me. Like, do you offer something like, I know I want to move abroad? Do you have like a consultation where I can come talk to you about like these countries based off of how you're going to be making your income or what money you're going to be living off of? Yes, I think that country's going to be a good fit, or no, I think these 3 countries, or maybe make suggestions like, is could someone come to you at kind of doing, I guess, some pre-planning and some preparation in choosing a place that's going to make the most sense for them from a tax perspective, if that's a big concern of theirs?
Absolutely. That's what we do. That's what
Okay.
I recommend, actually, because your trusted advisor, whoever you work with, that's your right hand person when it comes to this money, right? So whatever you do, I need to know where you going to, where you think you're going to, or whatever, because not only that makes my job easier, right? But it makes yours, and typically that's how I'm able to build my business also, because making sure you take it care of. I get referrals and stuff like that. I don't really market myself. Like I don't market. Most of my clients came from word of mouth, right? So the thing is that is very much important. And it's important whoever you get over there to handle your foreign taxes, that you build that partnership and that connection with whoever is doing your taxes on a U.S. side. So yes, that is something I want to know. We talk about it because there's things that you may think you want to move to that might not be a good idea. It might not be a good idea right now, or we might need to build strategies for you to go there. If you got family, everything is taking account of everything that's going on in your life.
Okay. All right. Okay. So some of the questions we got from the chat. Here's one from Shonda. I use Wise to pay my rent, but it's connected to my US account. Do I have to report that? It charges me fees.
So as I mentioned earlier, yes, if you don't have like you already taxed, right? Your US portion, they are already aware of. Where you move it to, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And so when it comes to like why you doing transactions, funding, it doesn't matter. So no, you don't have to do the F bar, right? For
Hmm.
that, if that's what you're thinking about, or the
Yeah.
reporting aspect, you don't have to do that. But if that country, depending on that specific app or whatever, or where is it flowing through, if you're taking it out on if it's connected in a foreign bank or whatever, if they have that connection with that foreign bank, then you do need to report it if it's over 10,000, the aggregate amount.
That's that's the important piece with the FBAR reporting is you have to have $10,000 across your foreign accounts. If you never put more than $2,000 in there, there's nothing to report.
Absolutely. And it's for the year, right?
Yes.
So this is something that you need to be thinking about filing yearly. Like you file your taxes. I always tell my clients, when you file your taxes, think about filing the F bar, or depending on if your threshold is higher, then you got to do the 8938 or something like that. So just think about those things when it comes to report. And the thing is, honestly, reporting isn't the issue, right? It's not. You're not taxed on it. You're not. They ain't. It's more. They just want to know. And honestly, they ain't even checking for a lot of us. So
Yeah,
they
no,
just
it's just I feel like they want to have the information in case one day you show up and you're like a multimillionaire and they're like, hold on, we
yes,
need to be able to put the pieces together to figure out where
right.
this money came from. But it's the act of filing it is in and of itself is not, it's
Right.
not a
And it
big deal.
doesn't matter where you get to the money. Like, let's say, for instance, the question comes, well, there are people who made, quote unquote, they work in another country. Like, they're making money in another country, right? But you still a US citizen, right? So everything is worldwide. So it doesn't really matter, if you're frolicking around, if you make that over that threshold, just report it and be done with it, and that's it. And again, they're really not, they checking for the ones that really out there be hiding money, right? Like red flags, red alerts, or whatever. Because even wise that platform, they report to
Because they ask for
their
your social
entities,
security when
right?
you open the
Exactly. So they're reporting, and that's another thing that gets people like, oh, I made money through all of these apps. People pay me through Cash App, Zelle, all that other stuff. They're reporting. They're gonna do what they have to do as a corporation. So you just have to make sure it matches what they reported. You on your end doing what you're supposed to do.
Really, that's that's it more than anything, I feel like. Okay, here's another question. F Doctor said, just to clarify, an income tax state has both federal and state taxes. That's correct, right? All
Yes.
right. Um, okay. Uh,
So his question, their question was that they currently live in Florida, which is they don't pay state
yeah.
income tax, and they have property that is in South Carolina, who does have income tax, right? And so
Yes.
is
It
property
says
taxes one? Okay, go ahead.
property tax is a separate thing because
It's
according
separate
to this,
thing.
they don't have income
Income,
in
right,
South Carolina.
right,
Um,
income,
okay, here's an example. For instance, I was an extra on The Haves and the Have-Nots, which was filmed in Georgia. So for the rinky-dink $50, $76 or whatever they paid me, I had to pay the state of Georgia their share on that income, even though I don't live in Georgia, but I earn that money in Georgia.
right,
State of
right.
Texas
So
didn't care because Texas doesn't have income tax, but Georgia was
absolutely.
like, we gonna get our $18 or whatever it was.
Right. So yeah, property taxes is really separate. It's based on your property, the taxes that you pay for wherever your property is located in. But for those who do, because that is a good thing, for those who lives in a non-income tax state but have assets in other states or a business registered in other states that have state income tax, you're required to file that information, your income. And if they want to tax you, they can. Of course, you can exempt a lot of times, depending on what states, though, because all states are not created equal. You can do a non-residency, you know, state tax form, and then potentially omit some things. But certain states, like for instance, Indiana, if you have a property here in Texas and you live in Indiana,
Indiana lost their peace.
they still fit tax you on your income that it doesn't have. So that's that's some of the things you
Okay.
have to be aware of. Yeah.
All right. Is it best to have a CPA in the States to file your taxes or a tax preparer in your residence country? And I think you already spoke to this, that really
Yes.
you kind of need both.
You should, yes, you should have in both locations. What I've seen is it you really should. And even for professionals that say they do international taxation, you kind of gotta really do your due diligence and making sure they do. Because with the influx of migration, it's a lot of people coming out of the weeds to say they're knowledgeable in certain aspects and areas, and they're really not. And then even on the resident country that you decide to, make sure some of them not even knowledgeable on the US taxation, or even you being an immigrant in their state, they don't really know, because a lot of these states, they're trying to figure it out, like how to tax you. Some states, I mean, certain countries is figuring out how to tax you, whether you should be taxed or not. It can get very confusing on like what income they're going to tax you or whatever. So how they can even track you. So it's really, you do need to have a professional on both aspects of the end.
And what I've seen a lot in some of the expat spaces is people will say, I'm a Canadian and I need somebody who does both Mexican taxes and Canadian taxes. And that's what I'm hearing you say is that is probably not the way to go. You need somebody
No,
who is an expert in a particular area.
right. Honestly, because Adelia, when people come to me first, they always think that I have knowledge of how taxation and how they really, so required to be taxed in that country. While because of the person that I am, I do like, a very overview of what that is, of where they're going through. But at the end of the day, you need someone who can navigate those forms, and not even that, language barrier. So, and I can't. You be over there moving to Thailand, and I can't speak Thai, and I can't read the Thai paperwork, and I'm not going to, get it transcribed to US, or if I start doing that, then rates gonna be like out of the roof.
Yeah,
So,
like you don't want to have to pay for
you
that
don't want
kind
to
of
have to pay
service.
for that. It's going to get really expensive real fast, and then two, it's too much information. Honestly, it's an overwhelming amount of information, amount of rules, all the countries there is, how they're being. It's just too much. So yes, don't think don't think you can find somebody who can do both. I haven't found anyone I know who. There's people who say they can. I see some in the other countries that say, but they still don't. They only know like a very, quick overview of things.
All right.
I call them
So
Google people.
okay, so I had this question too. Well, not this
Mhm.
exact question, but related to it. So I dash wanted to know, isn't it true that a lot of countries don't recognize LLCs? My question was, as you mentioned, a lot of us that leave the US end up at some point going into business for ourselves. And so I'm kind of piggybacking on this question with mine that like I think if you're starting the business before you leave, that's one conversation. But I've already left. I'm living in this other country and I want to start a business. Like,
Mm.
are there things that I need to think about because I'm already outside of the US?
Yes, yes. So I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to answer yours, Adelia. So LLCs here is a disregarded like entity here.
And
So
explain what that means that it's a disregarded entity.
meaning technically, like LLCs is like a business formation, also with your state, right? It's not recognizable with the IRS as a tax base. So if you're a single owned LLC, single member, then what happens is that you're considered technically on a tax side a sole proprietor. It's the same thing in the eyes of the IRS. And so therefore you're taxed, but it is attached to your personal income. You is one of these things. So basically, when you go file taxes, you don't have to do business forms. You just do a Schedule C for an LLC. So that's what that means, basically. Um, so to piggyback, a lot of countries may or may not have like recognized LLCs. They'll recognize it as a business, and that's the two, like how you set up your LLC. Um, Depending on that country, they have like similar type of business registrations, and that you can definitely register for, or depending on certain countries, actually, an LLC is look at it as a corporation,
Hmm.
right? So they once you like end up formulate your business as that, it looks as a corporation. So you could possibly end up paying corporate taxes in that country or whatnot. So it just depends on the country, honestly. But typically, it's disregarded, so it's not nothing in nobody else's country, basically. And so that's that. With regards to your question, Adelia, yes, you can set up businesses in other countries. And it may work for you, it may not.
Well,
The
okay, let's use me as an example. I
okay,
was already outside the US when I ended up going into business for myself. But I decided, whether it was for the better or not to form the business in the country I was living in, but in the US, because the source of my income would be US based,
yes.
as opposed to trying to navigate the system in China.
Right, right. And that's fine. And I recommend it. But those who decide to register business outside the country, that opens up a whole new other issue with the US because now you're considered a foreign corporation. And so the foreign corporation and how that is taxed is different, right? And so the forms are different. The filing is more expensive. It's you just opening yourself into a whole nother thing. So if I don't tell people, hey, don't do it, just but be prepared. Now you're opening up yourself for another form of taxation on a US side and how you have to report that income too. um
Okay.
and so that can, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just gonna open up another country, another, you know business, but you still a US citizen, so it doesn't matter at the end
And
of the
Uncle
day.
Sam
It doesn't
can
want
tax
worldwide
your worldwide
or
income.
worldwide income from foreign entities or whatnot. So just know that now it's considered a foreign entity. And then let's say that you decide you have your business, it's going good, right? In another country, you open it up in another country, right? And you decide to come to the US, then now you have to register your business again as a foreign, business. And the taxation process is very much different. It's no longer, it's not, it has not, it's not no longer a simple um, filing. So that's something that you really do need to be aware of if you decide to open up. And then don't even think about the taxes in the country that you're in, because now you have a foreign based country, foreign based business in their country or wherever else. They have, their own taxation and different taxes on foreign entities. So, like if you decided to open up something in, Thailand, and you move to Portugal, or you move to Spain or whatever, then that's a whole nother thing. So, normally,
Don't What I hear is don't do that before you got a team in place.
don't
That's what I hear.
exactly. And you got a team in place. Absolutely, absolutely.
That's what I hear. Okay. How much does MaCara charge for an initial consultation? You don't charge for discovery calls,
I
correct?
do not know. Discovery calls are free. And so basically I listen to what's going on, and I'll let you know if it's something that we can work on. However, there is a consultation where you actually
Okay.
need, answers or whatnot. And it requires me to dive in a little deeper to your situation. And then those consultations is $150 per hour. So
Okay.
when you do that, just come on by.
Okay. All right. Um, all right. So we have two Social Security questions that I
Okay,
don't know if you can answer.
I can answer.
If you move to Mexico and receive
Hmm.
American Income SSD,
Hmm.
do you have to report that to Mexico or pay Mexican taxes?
Honestly, so with Social Security income, it depends. I don't know particularly with Mexico, but majority of people, they normally do not tax Social Security income,
In the
disability.
US?
It well, sometimes even in the country that you go
Okay.
to. So the US, with when it comes to Social Security, normally it's not taxed, depending on your overall, like the threshold that you meet over. Then it can potentially become taxed or whatever. But Mexico in particular, That is a good question, and I don't want to answer that. But I just say
I can
normally,
answer it because I'm not
okay,
the professional here, and
okay.
nothing I say can be construed as tax advice. Um, I suspect it is not because of the number of retirees that are here. If it
That's
was,
what I
I
was
don't
gonna
think they would
say.
be here.
That's what
I
I
don't
was
think they
gonna
would be
say.
here.
But most countries don't really tax Social Security income. Honestly, it's multiple countries that don't do that. So really, it's best to look at that state or that country, their rules on based on whether they're required to be taxed.
Okay. And then the other one was I'll be on Social Security when I move abroad. Will I have to file? I'm going to assume
Well,
they meant US tax.
yes. So it just depends, honestly, how much your Social Security retirement is. So you're typically not required to file if you're like for right as of this year. The filing standard amount goes up a lot of times year to year, but it's $12,950. So if you make under that amount, you're not required to file anyway. Now, if you do make that, and let's say you have a business on the side, then depending on how much you made in that business, and honestly, the amount is low, y'all. So, like, so the
Isn't it
amount,
like
like, normally
$400?
$400. So, honestly, if you do that and you had like the side hustle that make over $400, then you are required to file. You guys.
Okay. All right. Um, Again, I don't know that you can answer this question. When I moved to Dubai, work online, no longer resident of the US, what taxes am I required to pay? Now, me, the non tax person, it is not possible for us to not be a resident of the US, correct? Like we don't get
Yeah, so that's a good question because when you say not resident, are you like literally like giving up your citizenship?
I
That is
don't
the
think
question.
that's what
But
they mean.
if not, then if you're still like a citizen, like citizens don't have nothing to do with like residents. You know what I'm saying? That's two totally different things. So,
Yeah.
but if you're a citizen of the U.S., then you are required to pay if you make over the threshold by working online. If you're making over $12,950, then yes, you're due required to pay. If you're making over $400, you are a self-employment. You're required to file. I'm sorry, required to file for both of them. And if you owe over $1,000 in self-employment income, you're required really to do quarterly taxation. So
Hmm.
those that is that. And then what you supposed to pay in Dubai. So I do have a client that lives in Dubai. So within the taxation, it really just depends. Normally, what Dubai typically do not have
Not have
like
a income
income
tax.
tax at all, right? So normally that is one of those countries that we look at and say, okay, we're gonna do an FEIE then.
Yeah. Because I used to live in Kuwait, and that was like the only good thing about living in Kuwait is that they didn't have an income tax. Okay. Um, okay. Do you work with American citizens who are on a non-lucrative visa in like Spain? They're considering going to Spain on a non-lucrative visa. They would not have income. They wouldn't have earned income because
Mm-hmm.
there was another comment after this that specified that part that there would not be any earned income in either country.
Well, yes, I do work with those clients, but earned income is just earned income. Like if you where do you make income? Like, do you
Maybe
have,
maybe it's off of like they got
like,
401k.
yeah, like, so those who have like 401k, they have dividends, those who are stock traders and all that other stuff. So, yes, I still will work with you because yes, you
Okay.
still have requirements regardless.
Okay. All right. I think we have answered all of the questions that y'all posed in the chat. Um, so yeah, I don't know about y'all, but this has been very educational, very enlightening. I am so thankful that you agreed to come hang out with us tonight.
No
Um,
problem.
uh, if you're watching this in the future, of course, the link to MaCara's company's website, Legacy Accounting Partners, is in the description. And you mentioned that there's really two brands. There
It
is
is.
the Legacy Accounting Partners that really is more about like the
US
US
based, just US
based
based,
side of things.
people who just, normal day to day. And also, so yeah, so we'll deal with that.
Okay.
But there is a link on the top, even under the legacy, it says expats and digital nomads. Then you click that link, it'll bring you to the booking or the information for those. So then you'll just schedule a time with me and we can, really see what we can do. So we can really,
Shonda,
get
Shonda's on it. She done already booked. She already figured out
okay.
because what Makara was saying on the Legacy Accounting Partners website, there is a link that takes you to the stuff that's specifically for those of us who are expats or planning to move abroad or you want to be a digital nomad. And that brand is Around the World Ledger. So Makara's got you. She's got you covered. uh, no matter what it is you're doing, we are all very, very thankful and appreciative that you have been here tonight sharing this with us. Uh, Pamela is back there taking notes. So thank you so much for giving
You're
us some
very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me anytime.
I'm trying to think, is there something I need to tell y'all before I let you go? If there is, it's not coming to me. So I hope everybody has a good night and we should be back on track for our Wednesday lives. If you're new here, typically we go live on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Because I do not have any trips until July. So we'll be here every Wednesday. All right, y'all. Good night.
Bye.